Welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. I'm excited to be interviewing Jamie Easterman, who has been in the online business for 25 years. He started developing e-commerce in 1995 and now runs four businesses involved in getting businesses online and growing your sales. And far too often I hear people saying to me that their business would be much better once they're online, or they're waiting to sort out their website, or once the website's ready they're going to do XYZ, and then months later I still hear those conversations going. So today I wanted to jump straight into that and see, especially through the recent pandemic, how you have no choice but to be visible online to survive and adapt, and it is adapt or die now. So it's really important. And today, what we're going to go through is we're going to understand how Jamie helps businesses successfully go from zero online presence to kind of superheroes within 90 days. Is that right?
That's the promise. I mean, it can be done quicker. The reality is the superhero bit requires a little bit of a boost. You've got to put some time and effort into making that happen.
Now, one of the caveats that you put in, and one of the things that I like, is that it's without tech confusion, which that'll be an interesting one, or wasting time and money, and those are valuable resources. And some of the takeaways that we're going to have today are making sure that you understand your customer problem before you start spending that money. How to take things online, refining things, and when to do that. The aim, load, fire approach, which Jamie will explain in a bit more detail later. And then the last one I'm going to leave for Jamie to review later. But we're also going to be tackling at some point this horrible little cube that we have. And as you can see, I still haven't been able to solve. Really annoys me. But Jamie is going to give us some insight on not only how your website and your online presence can make you a lot more effective as a business, but also how you can solve this and the thinking behind it and the systems behind how he has been able to run four businesses successfully over the last 25 years. So, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. If you could do us a favor and take us down your kind of journey, because I know you've been on an interesting journey over the pandemic period, helping a lot of businesses that have never even thought about being online come online, and what that's been like, and just a little bit more about you, really.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. For me, I suppose the journey I've been on, it's been a 25-year journey now. I've recently kind of thought back about how that all started and where I'm at now. And really, it's a singular focus I've had of how do I sell products online? And I've had that mission since mid-95. I've been working on products and taking them online and finding audiences and understanding the ins and outs and the technical stuff and the marketing stuff and all the stuff that's today is obviously evolved hugely from where it was back then. But the problems are the same. The problems are the same. The basics are the same. And I maybe had a little foresight back in 95 that where we are today was the world that I could see. And I saw the challenges in business in general were, how do I sell my products to people, to more people? And we were using traditional media back then. We were using magazines. We were using all the various sales and marketing tools that existed, from billboards and TV and traditional offline media. We forget what that world was about, but it was very black and white, very analog, and it was very mass broadcast, because unless you were advertising in specific niche magazines or markets or places, your advertising choices were fairly limited. And you were obviously limited potentially to local business as well, retailers, and physical location was everything. And for some fortuitous reason, I was in a traditional, very traditional offline business, but had an exposure to some of the technology that was going on at the time. And there was this thing called the internet that I heard about. You know, it was early dial-up services through the likes. I'm not even sure if CompuServe was probably one of the only ISPs or managed service providers. I know AOL didn't exist because I actually was on one of their early dial-up betas. I know Microsoft Internet Explorer didn't exist because, again, I was on one of their betas. There was a little internet provider down the road called Demon, who offered a floppy disk service that you could install via your Windows 3.1 computer. I mean, again, technology.
I remember using that.
Stacks. It was horrendous, right? And so, yes, the technology that we're using today, the speeds we're connecting at, compared to the speeds then, and again, we've got what 1 gigabit connection speeds at home these days. Well, back then 14.4 kilobits a second, and that's about 30,000 times different. So today we can download a DVD in about 4 minutes, and back then the equivalent technology, if your mum didn't pick up the phone 15 times throughout, it was at 16 days to download the same amount of data.
Just a little bit of context there.
So we were really challenged by what we could do, but despite all of that, I kind of realized that it was relatively straightforward to put some text, to have some checkboxes, forms, to use some of the technology that existed for encryption, secure service layer, secure sockets, SSL certificates existed at a basic form. It was baked into the early web browsers. We were using Netscape 0.9 beta when I first started writing web pages and in Notepad. Now, today, that experience and the technology that we've got at our disposal is vastly, vastly different. Obviously, we can, download movies on demand at the click of a button. But I still see retailers and e-tailers struggling with understanding that they can connect with putting their business up online, but they're quite happy to go home and consume media and, sit on the end of Facebook, but have a problem and a struggle with understanding that their offline business can exist in an online world, and it's not that difficult to translate the concept or the ordering process. And I struggle, and I did over lockdown with some businesses that were only offline, particularly in the food supply markets, Mac, as you know.
Yeah, I remember seeing many of your posts.
But it leads on to frustration because as a consumer, I couldn't buy food without going into shops. That shops weren't available. The online shops, the big retailers had it sewn up, but no one could get an Ocado delivery, a Tesco slot, or what have you for love nor money. If you hadn't been on their books, if you hadn't got a regular supply chain, you were out the loop. So there were all these local retailers that were doing great with people that could get down to them. The queues were stretching outside their stores. But if you were in quarantine, how were you meant to get through to them? And for some of them, I ended up getting involved in processes where they were sending order forms through WhatsApp, or there was some convoluted email trail that then followed. And I was like, really? I'm dealing with or looking at apparently businesses that have not understood that I could be clicking and collecting or clicking and ordering. And so I went on a mission to think about, well, I'm here with some valuable resources in terms of my ability to help businesses, and they don't understand what's going on. What do they need? And I know the barriers that some businesses had in the past are because they've dipped their toe in, they've spent some money with some developers who have led them on a merry dance for months and months and months without delivering anything that meets their expectations. They've wasted money. They don't understand how this stuff works. And I've obviously had to help over the years people understand the tools and systems they're using and how to connect with audiences. And we've put in systems that work as part of this. So I thought, yeah, sorry.
No. I wanted to interrupt you there because sorry for throwing you off trail. But you know, if you're looking at some of these businesses that you speak of now, where they haven't converted to the online world, or even those big retailers that are online, but you know, they haven't converted their offline to online.
Mm.
You know, if you're not digitally savvy, which sounds mad in today's digital age, but the reality is there's still a massive amount of people that are not, you know, because there's so many different acronyms and different
Mm.
phrases, things that have been thrown around. They don't know what they don't know, and the challenge that they have is the fact that they potentially are just overwhelmed with the information, and that is the part that has made it really scary for
Yeah.
people to go online. So, you know, and they speak to different people, and they get, you know, a website. Oh, you can get a website, just do it for free. And then you get other people who go, oh no, a website's going to cost you like £10,000, and all of a sudden you're stuck in that dilemma of like, I don't want to get it wrong.
Sure.
So where do we start? You know, just kind of
Okay.
from a
Right.
basic
So,
perspective.
I mean, that's a brilliant kind of point, and I know that the key challenge is that there's a lot of people who are paralyzed by fear about doing something wrong. Okay, putting a foot wrong, not doing it until it's perfect, and paralyzed by that fear of indecision of what's the next best step and what have you. And the first piece of advice I'm going to give everyone, and I will try and keep it as polite as possible, is just do it. I have another letter I put in the mid, you know, a second letter in there normally, because it really does need to be done with some strength. Because the reality is, if you don't put forward one foot, you'll never get to the top of that mountain. And it can be a mountain, and it can be a marathon. And you know, no one's going to complete the marathon overnight. No one's going to complete that journey to the top of Everest in one step.
Yep.
You have to break it down, and I think I'm lucky that I had a little bit of a programming logical background, and when we were given big programming problems or tasks, the first stage was to break it down into little manageable steps. And I actually see that business is very much like that. And that if you actually break down everything into a simple set of sequences, they are repeatable, reproducible. And if you do them in the same way and you think about it, the ideas are interchangeable. The concepts can work everywhere. And for me, obviously, this is now where I've evolved my aim, load, fire messaging. Because taking any idea online, you have to make sure that you've lined up everything first. You've lined your ducks up before you go out shooting. Now, I know a lot of people, if we talk about a gun analogy, think you've got to load your weapon first before you go and aim. But online, actually understanding what your product is, who your audience is, what the problem that you solve for them, and actually it helps you develop a proposition. And these are the four marketing pillars that we talk about: product, price, place, promotion, proposition. There might be a fifth one there, and I'm sure we can talk about a lot of P's. But again, you know, from a lining up thing, if you've got everything lined up, from that point on, everything you do afterwards makes a lot of sense. The content that you're producing, that you're loading up, the message that you're putting everywhere has a logical sequence, that you understand what the product is that you're putting in front of the right person, why they would want to give you money or exchange something of value in their life for this thing that you're offering that's going to solve their problem.
Yeah.
And where I've really hit into key successes in my business over the last, or businesses over the last 25 years, it's where I've realized, and looking back, sometimes I intuited, sometimes I inherently knew I had a solution to a problem. And the question was, how do I wrap it up into something that I can put out as a proposition to someone where they understand the value of this, that it has something, some measurable effect in their life or in their business or in bottom line. This is marketing and sales 101. Okay.
Yeah.
Before you look at whether you've got an online business, look at whether you've got a business. Because a lot of people think they've got a business when they come to me, and I actually have to kind of go through these basics. How much does a website cost? Well, actually, let's look at what we've got to do to make your business work. What is your business? What is your product? Who are you selling to what? Then when these things have kind of passed that test, and you know that you've got something that's a service or a product that's complicated enough that someone's going to value it and exchange something of value in their life because they can't do it in a timely manner or a professional manner, but it's going to have some measurable impact in some other aspect of their life, which is going to be measured in their respect by love, by health or wealth. And those are people's only really key drivers in everything. If you put your product into that context of how does your product change their health, wealth, or love?
It's interesting because I guess the analogy that I get, you've just made it very clear that, and this is, I think, the part that people miss because they ask, how much is a website, and they don't consider all the things that you've just mentioned. And it's almost like saying, how much is a car? And it's like, well, which car? Is it supposed to be loading how many people? Where are we going? Is it going from point A to B? Is it a luxury ride? Is it what's the purpose?
Well, and there's a big scope here, isn't there?
Right back to the why, which everything comes down to that kind of why first.
The why, what are you trying to achieve? Now, people come to me, they have different goals. Some people want to achieve more leads to their website. Some people want more sales. And in order to understand what that thing they want that website to achieve, that's the goal. So we look at, we actually have to work backwards from the goal. We don't know what it's going to take to shift the dial until we've understood where they're at point 0 and where they want to be at point 12 months time or 24 months time or 36 or whatever that journey path is. And when we understand the delta, the difference between where they are today and what resources they've got today to where they want to be in 12 months time, then we can put a plan together that actually achieves the right result. So I do this to myself. I look at my own goals and I say, how do I achieve my own goals? What have I done? Now, quite frankly, I'm going to put my hands up and say I'm guilty as everyone else, because that's not how I started business. I didn't set out on my business path 25 years ago going, oh, I want to turn over X amount. I want to have this and that in my life. I just had this really cool idea that I could solve a problem for a certain type of people. And in my mind, I went, wow, I think I've got something that's a valuable proposition that's going to have an impact on people. How do I now connect with those kind of people? Yeah. I understand who I solve the problem for. I understand what my product is and the value of it. Now I've got a problem I've got to kind of explain to people who don't understand this web, this internet, what I'm going to build for them. And I build digital clones of offline businesses. I help them grow their audiences and sales through becoming digital versions of their offline businesses, or essentially start from a zero footprint to finding a business online. And for me, offline business is slightly different to online business, as much as you're not there as a shopkeeper to guide your customer through the store. And offline businesses have this mentality, and I've got a number of friends that I work with who are old school in mentality, which is a great understanding for me to understand where businesses today are struggling.
Yeah.
And I promise you that there are some very established businesses today that are as lost in how to guide their customers through their products as someone who's starting today from scratch. That traditional retailers don't, whilst they possibly follow the path as a consumer, they don't understand how to present their products to consumers in a similar way and experience. And they go, here's my product, buy it. Traditionally, I think that's how a lot of websites are. And I look at a number of, I'm not going to single them out right now because they may well be clients of mine. I really have to be careful. Okay, so I'm here to fix everyone's problems in this sense, and by identifying the problems, it gives us all an understanding of how to fix them and make sure that we understand that there is a journey that we're all on of discovery when we uncover a solution or a product. And I find myself doing this every day online. I don't know about something. Someone mentions something in a thread of conversation, and I go, I've never heard about that product or service. And I did it to you maybe half an hour ago, Mac. I gave you some little tip or trip. You know, and this happens on forums, on blogs, and you know, we go googling and we suddenly stumble across something. We're looking for a solution to our problem, and all of a sudden we hit across this name or this service or this concept we've never heard about, and we go, whoa, I'm in a black hole here. I've got no knowledge. I'm just opening a door, and I thought I knew everything, and suddenly I'm in the dark, and I realize I'm in the dark, and I need to know more. And for me, this is actually what everyone does when we go through a sales process. We go from being unaware to becoming aware of there being a solution to our problem. Okay, and it's as a business owner, it's our job, not necessarily to do the product we're doing, but to essentially explain to our customers what and how our product helps solve their problem. And I know that retailers today are not doing that. They go, here's my product, buy my product. My product costs this much. Buy it now. I don't know what your product is and how it helps me and why I should buy your product and why I care about your product. It means nothing to me at this point in time. And I don't care about your brand. And quite frankly, I know that actually a lot of people get upset about the way they look and feel online and that their brand doesn't meet their requirement. But I can tell you a story where you would buy something from a tramp if it met your needs. And a lot of people I've told that to would say, oh, no, I would never take advice from a tramp. But just consider if you had a dodgy knee and you'd been to every doctor under the sun and you were sitting there telling your friend about how you've been to the most expensive specialists under the sun, and he still couldn't cure this pain that woke you up at 3 o'clock in the morning because the pain shot up your knee, and all of a sudden this tramp came up to you and he says, and do you feel like you need to have a burning pee at the same time? And you go, yes. And he says, and does the problem go away like 15 minutes later but come back like, you know, like an hour later? And you go, yeah. And he goes, well, I've got the answer for that problem. And now at that point, would you listen to him?
Well, at that point, especially if the pain is at that level where you've been moved to a position where you're willing to listen to anything.
But also the point is, if the person that's telling you about your pain is specific enough to describe your pain and problem and say that he has the answer to, well, this is the point. We're not doing this online. This is the problem that a lot of people face. And that when you actually start to sit down and think about your client, your audience, and the problems that they have, and you start to actually describe how you can help them in that problem they have and transition them in that process. If you're doing it digitally, and you then can lead them through your process and say, here is the answer to your problem. Click here, buy this, get in contact with me. If you can line that up digitally in an organic sense, we're not talking about advertising at this stage, but just say, hey, go to my website, have a look at this. Does this meet your problem? we've got the aim and the load part sorted. We've loaded up your proposition online, and if there's a way of converting someone who hits the start of the problem process, becomes aware of the problem that you solve for them, aware that you are the authority, and the question becomes, how do we nurture them through that authoritative state so that they've gone from this perspective of, I didn't even know you existed, to, my God, you're my savior in my life. How do I buy now the answer to this problem that's been burning me for days, months? I've spent so much time and effort on this, but here you are with a specific process to take me through the problem. I'm committed. Now, this is what we're doing digitally in the aim load part. The fire comes from the same process, because we're talking about today firing out our content through all of these social media, blogs, Facebook channels that exist, emails, referral networks, offline networking, telephone calls. That's fire. That's the traditional fire, but you've got to land people back on your digital proposition that's going to sell for you while you sleep. You don't want to, if you can avoid being on the end of your phone, great. If it's a high value ticket proposition, you may well need to be involved in some phone call to facilitate it. It's, you're not necessarily going to, and again, I think I have a few analogies. Online dating is a great one. Today there's a lot of people clicking and finding love online. Okay, they go, they click left, they click right. And the reality is that people are finding it, but you don't go from left click to, marriage overnight. You have to go through a process of getting to know, like, trust and love this person. And the same comes in a digital sense. When we're selling products to our clients, they have to get to know the product that we have, that it solves the problem. They have to get to like what we say, and that they have to trust that we are the person or people that can solve it for them. And this has to be lined up digitally.
Is that something that I'm assuming in your 90-day process, is that something that you actually target and go through in that 90-day process as well?
Absolutely, because okay. Again, this is the process that I have refined over 25 years now in terms of dealing with many different products and clients, is assessing where they're at, what's the problem, what's the goal, put in a plan to achieve the results, load up the digital resources, go out all guns blazing. Now, everyone's goals are different. The resources may be slightly different. In terms of digital architecture or orchestration, there's only a couple of things you need to do to get a product online. And to put a product online, you need to get a domain. You need to get some web space. You need to put your message, your proposition on the end of a conversion event, a phone call, a cash transaction, and there needs to then be obviously business that flows behind it.
Yeah.
The promotion of the business obviously then comes into a marketing sense, but identifying and creating a brand from scratch, loading up a website, and then going out with a marketing campaign can certainly be done with results in under 90 days. Absolutely, cast iron guarantee, without any problem at all. And I can turn concepts overnight into a website and put a proposition out on social media today, right now. If I have a need, if a client brings me a problem, I have teams of guys that deliver this stuff day in, day out. And over the years, it takes lots of different specialists to deliver the aim, load, fire part. But we've developed frameworks of delivery. And today it doesn't matter whether they go to me or another web developer. You're going to give them the same business concept. Here is my brand. Here is my logo. Here is my message. Here are my pictures. Here is my video. If you don't have those, you need to go through a process to get those things. Again, the question is how quickly and efficiently can you organize all those components? And sometimes people have them, sometimes they don't.
So let me ask you a few questions, because I've been through, over the last 15 odd years, been through the process of working with different businesses, starting up several of my own businesses, and had some interesting experiences with websites and working with different web developers and different companies and marketing companies and all the rest. And with our audience today, we're going to have people that are in all different kinds of situations. We're going to have those people that are effectively sitting there, trying to figure out how they reinvent themselves. We've got those people that are very well established, but as you say, they've got a great offline business, but their online business, yes, maybe they've got a shop window as a landing page or a website that says, hey, this is who we are, come to our store. But they're not doing business online. And then there are those that are, looking at switching, altogether. And everybody's, because of this pandemic, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of changes. And when you go through that web process, you mentioned getting a domain as an example. Let's answer some questions. I know I'm thinking about, because I've gone through the experience, and I know a lot of other people are sitting there thinking, okay, I've got to get a domain. Where do I get a domain? Do I go to a web developer and they get me the domain? Do I go and get the domain myself? How do I come up with a domain? Should I choose the domain with that web developer, and how do I choose the name?
Okay, this was one of the challenges that I realized, and I fell this on day one. I had to go and get the domain registered. I mean, today I'm actually a domain registrar as part of one of my processes. I'm an ISP that I actually set up back in the early days. I realized I had to solve all the problems along the way for clients, and I had domains that I wanted to register, but someone actually nabbed one of my domains in the registration process. I had to rebrand my original business. We had a limited company. We thought of the idea first. Then we went out and we tried, and we saw that it's the chicken and egg. Do I get the limited company before I get the domain name? Do I get the com? Do I get the co.uk? What's important? These are all big challenges for some people. If you can get the com, get the com. If you can get the co.uk as well, get the co.uk as well. There are other top level domains, extensions at the end that can be more suitable. There are .nets and .orgs for charities, and there are so many. There are hundreds today. That actually, if you find that your .com is not taken, there are variations, but it has to all be thought about, because obviously you're talking about copyright stuff, trademark stuff, potential cyber squatting issues, and I've helped people along the years, brands, rescue domains. I think I've been subject to a few infringement claims myself, possibly over the years, with domains that I inherited or went out and registered as a kind of early internet. Let's go and register this domain and that domain. The reality is that actually the domain is really important, and I'll tell you why. It's often the first time that you communicate with someone how to get in contact with you when you're in an offline sense, okay? And we're not talking about being found on Google, but we're talking about how it's presented on a phone call or on a business card or on an email address when you're communicating with someone. Now, first of all, let's talk about using the Gmails and the Hotmails and the Yahoos. Does that present a professional approach, number one? Yeah. The answer is no, and I wouldn't necessarily want to do business with someone who wasn't invested in presenting their domain, their business professionally. It kind of says something if people are not using a domain name. Their business isn't quite established.
Yeah.
So my first message to everyone is, are you master of your own domain?
It's a good question.
Are you master of your own domain? And if your business is established, and if you're going to establish yourself in the business of being a business online, you should have a domain name get-go. Whether you go to 1&1 or GoDaddy or 123reg or whoever, you can buy yourself a domain for less than £10 a month tonight and have it saved. If you find that domain available, nab it. If that's your ideal company name, nab it. You're talking about 10 quid and deal with the repercussions of it not being right later. I can't tell you the number of hundreds of domains I've bought just because I fancied it and went, oh, that looks like a nice name. And yes, we collect a few of them along the way, and some of them work out that they're valuable, and some of them I put on the end of a project or two, and others I've got a few Tonka toys in my shed because that's what I do. But okay, the point is that register your domain name if it is going to be your business and you want to present it. But then I'm going to give you a couple of warnings to watch out for. Watch out for ambiguity, like numbers and letters, like 4 and 2. Okay, because they are very confusing when you're communicating a domain name to someone, and you say 2 or 4 on the phone, or you. Are we referring to the number 4, the letter 2, or YOU, or just a U? Right.
I tell you that you are spot on there, because one of my businesses is a security business. Alarms are us, and I get the ambiguity. Is it an R or is it a?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So look, I know this stuff because, again, look, the question is when you're giving out an address, do you want someone to go to the wrong place? Do you want them to not send the email to the right place or end up on the right web page? And yeah, people go, oh yeah, but they can search my name. And then we get into a whole other thing about search engines and whether you're actually getting found by your company name or the problem you solve and all those kind of things. But yeah, let's keep a domain simple. Let's make sure there's no ambiguity, and think about communicating it to someone on the phone and say, how does it sound? When I say to someone, go to xyz.com, is it going to sound confusing? Are they going to get the sound? Are they going to ask me how to spell it 15 times? Does it have a hyphen in it?
Yeah.
Try and avoid all of those things at all costs. Don't be too clever. And eventually you might have to use an off-the-wall name for your website or brand. Sometimes that can actually be quite effective. But try and do something that does what it says on the tin and actually means something to your audience. Because actually, if you have the wrong brand or name on your website that doesn't match your audience and your product, they might question whether you are actually the person that they want to solve your problem. Now, I have experienced this because I have a few products that I've sold over the years in my growing portfolio. Some of my clients questioned some of my earlier brands that were more web-centric or more regional when I had more geographically independent or alternative technology products that didn't quite match. The product became incongruous with the brand that it was being sold by. And for me, this was part of my journey of understanding that sometimes you have to be very specific about your niche, and the problem can go all the way down to your brand and actually the colors and the message. That everything about your brand is representing could be wrong. If it's out of whack with your audience, they might not buy from you because they might not think you've got the credibility or authority of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is why I have today, unfortunately, 4 different brands that work at different niches with different propositions and different clients, because not one product fits all.
So domain name, we've got making sure there's that it's clear, that it hasn't got any other weird and wonderful potential meanings. One big thing that I've also realized is make sure that there's no other company, because sometimes we go Eureka, I like that name, great idea, go and get it registered, and then find out you've got the .co.uk, but they've got the .com, the .eu, the .everything else, and you end up losing customers.
That can be a problem. Yeah, that can be a problem. There are places to check that. Obviously check Companies House, check Facebook, check and Google. Have a look and see. Sometimes you might find the .com's been registered and it's sitting fallow, it's in hibernation, and you can then potentially negotiate with the domain owner. But I would always recommend doing it through a proper escrow agent, and that domain transfers can be notoriously challenging. And yeah, I think I was telling you earlier that I'm in the middle of a potential kind of fraud situation with one domain owner who is not who they seem, but I'm well protected in helping people on that process. And you have to be, obviously. That's the other aspect, that there is a security issue with doing business online, that you have to make sure you're protecting them.
That's a really strong point on the security side of things, because I know in the early days of my one of my businesses, I went and I searched registered domain name, went on registered domain name, created a website, had somebody put it together for me, and then as we were spending all this was about 3-4 years ago, started with the whole marketing budget, everything going live, everything's exciting. Tomorrow we're going to start getting leads in. And then somebody messaged me going, Mac, are you guys still in business? And I was like, what are you talking about? Went onto the website suspended because of security and malware attacks and all those kind of things. So just from that perspective, what could you tell people? What is the best, or what should people avoid, or who should people potentially avoid to make sure that they, even if they just a small business putting a landing page on, that it's going to still be there and the shop front doesn't disappear?
So again, it does come back to be master of your own domain. Make sure that you have the understanding, or a team that are working with you to control where those resources are. That you've got a web host. Obviously today we've got to consider things like GDPR, which is a little bit tricky for some to understand, but the reality of what GDPR is saying is that you have to understand the entire life cycle of where your data is and flowed and stored, and who has access to that data where. And I know that, again, it's challenging for people to say, oh, it's in Amazon, it's with Google, it's with this, or it's with some Indian guy who accesses it. But even if you've got potentially a developer who's helping you build your website out of the country, that might be a GDPR security issue. That might be if they have administrator access to EU citizen data, and they could export data. So I urge business owners to be very considerate when they're thinking about who has access to my back end of my website, of how who I'm spending marketing money with. And I said, I'm looking at a number of frauds out there today that exist, where business owners are being solicited into paying money for marketing that doesn't exist, with services that are an illusion behind them, that website owners are being duped, or business owners are being duped into paying substantial amounts into annual contracts, which are nothing but a subcontinent fraud scheme. And there are certain countries in the world that are more prevalent to these than others. And again, I'm not going to single any out in particular, but we all have to be aware that on the internet, there's a lot of fraudsters that want us to send money to them for the promise of the rewards that we're going to deliver. Now, I run a proper, legitimate digital marketing agency that goes in to fix a lot of problems from a lot of promises that have been made by a lot of people out there. So I understand the inherent distrust that people have had, the pain, the amount of money they've wasted with people who've not delivered the promises. And it upsets me. It upsets me that people who don't have good intent can tarnish the nature and the value of when it's done really effectively, because the rewards, if it's done right, are infinite in their scale. But it has to be done right, and people have to consider this is not a get rich quick business we're all in. that connecting with audiences and growing a business online takes time, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears sometimes to get it right.
Yep.
And there are really good guys out there and professionals that can help and deliver this. But a lot of business owners sometimes don't consider the true value. They think they can get away with what's cheapest out there. Now, again, if we look at what we expect and what's going to be delivered, there's a whole slew of options when we go out today. When we choose to buy a car, Matt, we can choose to be a pedestrian for one. We can choose to get the bus and we can choose to get the tube. We don't have to get the car, right?
Absolutely.
So people today can choose not to go online, and that is ultimately their choice. But you know, I still think that that costs them, and I think that's costing them big time today, because I don't think that an offline business that isn't online will be in business in 2 years' time. The reality is that their market will be crowded out by the online opportunists that have taken over the space that the offline retailers didn't want to or couldn't get into. So the real challenge is that doing nothing, is it really an option today? Yeah. And then you've got to consider the other options, and everyone has an option to DIY, right? We all can do. And look, I'll tell you that this background behind me, it's fake. If I could build this, I would. But if I had to build something like this, I'd get in a professional to do this, right? Because if I want a professional looking result, I'm not going to DIY it, right? Because I understand my limitations, right? I know what I'd end up creating would look, you know, kind of fall apart. And if I put anything on one of those shelves, it would fall down, Mac. I understand my limitations and I understand the results I'm trying to achieve. Going to be something like behind me. And if I'm looking at building an online business, I want to do it right. But I know that there are it's horses for courses, and people have got to grow and they've got to walk before they can run. So we've got to facilitate this, and we've got to see what the pathway is. But I promise you, the pathway of running comes from taking those proper steps, walking steps first, building on those foundations, learning how to walk and then run. And then, you know, you go from this, you know, from running to actually completing the marathon that you wanted to. So along the way.
I want to jump in there, because one of the things that a lot of business owners that I speak to, you know, we've kind of preempted this with saying that you can take people from 0 to hero in 90 days. But the reality is there's also that pre-launch conversation that needs to be had, whether it's with you or any web developer. You know, what are the, you know, if you're gonna approach somebody like you or a web developer, what are the kind of 3 or 4 or maybe even 10 fundamental things? So you kind of alluded to this earlier with regards to, okay, you know, you're going to have a conversation, you're going to need to know, you're going to need to have a few things ready in order for a web developer to take those steps and get you online. So you mentioned things like logo, domain name. So, you know, just like if somebody was to call you or a web developer, what should they have in the back of their mind that you are going to need to have this information ready so that you can get your questions answered much easier and move forward much easier?
Well, I think anyone who has a business idea, who wants to take it forward, has to think of it like, if I'm going to hand someone my business card, what does that business card look like? What am I representing? What does that person feel about me and my proposition when I've given them the business card? And this is how we're doing it in an offline sense today, essentially. We're not doing anything different when we take this into the web. We're essentially taking that business card and that theory online. Now, when you're meeting someone in an offline sense, you might ask them, hey, well, what are your biggest challenges today that I can help you with? And the customer will tell you the things that he's come to you or you think you can help him with. And what's your product going to do to solve those problems? How does your problem take them from, if we consider my superhero in 90 days without tech confusion and wasting time and money approach, I'm offering people a measurable, specific transition to solve a particular pain point in a certain period of time. And the reality is this is a universal formula for a sales message. If you can deconstruct what transition you make to someone in a defined period without their biggest pain, that gives them the biggest transitional transformation in love, wealth, and health, or one of those three, you've got your proposition that you can then lead them through. The proposition of your transformation is your content map.
Okay. So by understanding that clear process of what you're going to be taking your how you solve the pain, you can then go to a person like yourself or a web developer and go, okay, well, here's my logo, here's my journey, here's the problem that we solve.
I'm going to go back to your the point I made earlier about the trend. You don't need any of this. You don't need the logo. You don't need the domain. You don't need a website. You need to say on social media or anywhere, I solve this problem for X. And that's the starting point. You need to go out and talk about that, right? Now, the point is if you have a product and a business that you solve this problem for, you also have potentially clients you've done it for who give you a case study of how you've helped these people transform. Yeah. Now, when we look at the digital explanation of your business, we need to build a convincing journey for someone to go from unaware to aware, from uninterested to interested, to undecided to decided, to inactive to active, from not caring about you to being your biggest fan. And that is a journey. And we need to make sure that the customer journey has a supporting material along the way. Whether it's me, some other web developer, or you doing it yourself, you need to consider what stage people are in at this point. What are the questions they have about my product, and acknowledging the universe of their pain and questions has to be written out. And if you want to take that online, it's just a case of verbal diarrhea and spitting it out and using that as the starting point.
Okay, so for me, what I've taken away from that is clearly we can go and do that independently and try and work all that out and then come to a web person. But what I'm hearing is rather, if you're thinking about that and you're going to engage with somebody who's going to do the web stuff, if you're doing it yourself, then you need to go through that journey. You need to go put that together. But if you're going to be having somebody do it for you, it's best to have that conversation with the person you're possibly going to engage with, because they'll be able to help you firstly data dump, get all that stuff out. And clearly, if it's somebody like yourself who has been doing this for 25 years and you've helped multiple brand names be able to get online and have an effective result, you'll be able to have those signposts, because you've already made it very clear from the beginning that having a process in place where you can systematically go from zero to hero in 90 days is even though it may sound potentially costly depending on what the investment is, I can tell you from personal experience that it's a heck of a lot more cost effective to work with somebody who knows what they're doing, because in the long run, you end up saving a ton of frustration, wasted time, money on trying to fix problems that didn't get done right in the first place. And, I can go on about that for ages because I felt the pain.
You hit the nail on the head, Matt. It's getting it right from the start. It's being strategic, and it's not just about the web though. And again, you know, when we talk about the universe of what's going online today, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of channels that the message is going out. Again, this is part of the whole confusion: is where do I need to be putting my message where? And it seems very confusing. You know, I'm looking at your background, and you know, there's LinkedIn, and there's Instagram, and there's Facebook, and there's Twitter, and you know, and there's YouTube, and there's Channel X tomorrow, right? I mean, we don't know what's coming out tomorrow. You haven't got a TikTok on there, and you haven't got a Snapchat on there, and you know, when I look at some of these systems we look at, there's 200 others that, quite frankly, aren't in my region, I haven't cared about or haven't thought about, and I go, yeah, maybe we need to be thinking about that one too. And the question is how does anyone operate on all of these channels simultaneously, synchronized, and you know, what's the plan? Well, it actually is quite straightforward, and I know that it sounds ridiculous, but I try and put it into this galactic concept of black holes and supernova, that your website, your proposition is the only thing you really need to consider, and you need to make sure there's enough mass and gravity to attract people into your core proposition. But at the same time, you've got to eject a whole load of interstellar material into the social media networks to drag people in, to make them aware that you're there. So we orchestrate a systemized process. Once we understand, obviously, the aim part of our process is lining up all of the questions about who your specific people that you help. And it's not just one person you help a range of people, but there are different messages for those people at different parts of their journey. And once we understand who they are, we've got a content matrix that can be rehashed and regurgitated, and we understand where we need this, that, and the other to go. And ultimately, it all sits under maybe a blog or a video that sits on your website, or it's been embedded in an email sequence that's gone from when someone's clicked that free piece of information you've been offering. And we'll come to free information, because obviously free information and capturing information is one of the valuable ways that we convert unknowns to knowns in our process. And when we talk, if we're going to get a chance to talk about Rubik's cubes again,
I was just saying, as a wrap up, if we can go into that, because I'm conscious that if we, you know, we could probably unfold 1,000 different things because of your wealth of your knowledge, and and you know, not to overwhelm it.
I'd like to simplify it though. This was where I started to think about how I could use visual cues to simplify some of the mess that people are in today.
Yeah.
So I consider the Rubik's Cube, it's got 43 quintillion combinations that it could be in, but there's only one perfect state of order that we accept it can be in before we consider this as a perfectly solved solution, right?
Yeah.
So and I've got to be careful, because you now know I've got 2 cubes here, right? So actually I've got more than 2 cubes, because the problems get more complicated as we go through, but the same processes apply. Now the reality is that we also accept there's some smart kids out there that can solve this thing in seconds, because they're applying a process, an algorithm, a series of steps to solve the chaos to order. And actually, you might not believe it, but this cube is only 4 steps away from being perfect. And I can do it like this. And I showed it, you know, kind of there, you saw it in my hand. And I can do it like this. And I showed it, you know, kind of there. Okay. The reality is that, you know, you might see chaos, but if you have a process that you can take things through simple steps, you can solve it in your hands. It's a good job I've got a second cube there. Was that visual enough for you to see the?
That was very visual, as you could probably tell from my face. When I'm looking at this and I'm going 4 steps. Now,
Yeah.
in reality, if I go and this is the like, I know we've been talking for an hour, but in those few seconds, it all makes sense. I can go and try and figure it out, and I've been trying to do this for literally. I think we discussed this, having this interview about 2.5, maybe 3 months ago. And I've had the Rubik's Cube since then. I've still not solved the damn thing. And that is really what a lot of people's businesses are going through right now, is they're out there trying to discover it themselves, trying to figure it out, trying to do this, trying to do that. When the reality is they can tap into an expert, and you could have been online trading and already generating a substantial income had you spoken to somebody like yourself, Jamie, at the beginning of lockdown. But it's that fear, it's the unknown that ends up costing us a lot more time, frustration, error, and loss, potentially as well. And then people will turn around and go, it doesn't work, it can't be done.
Yeah.
When unfortunately, you have just done it in 4 moves.
Look, this is a trick. This is a trick move. Okay, I've learned it. I've practiced the pattern. Okay, but there is behind it, solving the Rubik's Cube for real on any cube is a algorithm, is a process of no more than 8 steps. Starts off building a white cross on one face. Okay, and each of the sides links up to the middle. Then you build up the middle layer. Then you do the top. It's built layer on layer, process by process. And this is a metaphor and analogy for what I take businesses through. There are simple steps. There's a process. And if you reproduce these steps, you can go from chaos to order very simply. And that's why I make the claims about 0 to online superheroes in 90 days, because we have a process that is something we've perfected over 25 years, that these are parts of the puzzle that everyone needs to go online. But if you do it in the wrong way, Mac, if you take your Rubik's Cube and you try it, there's 43 quintillion combinations of screwing it up. There's only one combination of getting it right. Now, everyone is looking for that, but it can be as simple as aim, load, fire, is understand what the problem is, load it up, and go out all guns blazing. And we do this digitally. We have that process. It's not rocket science, this stuff. It's simple logic, flow, breakdown, line up your ducks, have the right guys in play who understand what's needed where. Yeah. And we take away all the headaches from people. Now, yeah, people can go out and do it themselves. I wouldn't get very far if I wanted to build my own house physically, Matt. Okay. Yeah. I understand my limitations. If I want to live in a house, I'm going to get the pro in to build it. I'm not going to try and cobble a few walls together. I understand if my life depended on it, and when in a business sense, this is what I try and do. I try and make sure that, I'm building structures and businesses that can grow, that can, start small, find their feet, conduct business, and scale large. And I know that I've had clients with me over the last 20 years who are still clients of mine, members of my team who are still with me, and it happens because we've perfected some of the processes. Some of them we're evolving, some of them we're learning about that new channel X stuff tomorrow. We're opening fresh doorways and we're solving fresh challenges for our clients as we speak, But the fact is, we've learned the blocks, we've learned the processes, and then there's slight variations. And, that's the answer, really.
Jamie, you've taken us through a whole roller coaster with so many different things to consider, but kept it fairly simple at the same time. Now, to wrap up, I'm conscious that a lot of people are probably sitting here thinking, I can go from that disorder to order in such a short period of time. You know, if they were to reach out to somebody like yourself, what is the best way for them to go and connect with you? You know, is it your website? Is it emailing you? Is it phoning you? What's the best way to get on?
Online, all roads lead home. This is part of the key. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I have a number of different websites. Superwebguys.com is one of the places that I hang out, and always happy to be introduced to people who've got a challenge that we can audit where they're at, and give them at least an honest idea of where they can go. We can't help everyone. In fact, to be honest, Mac, I end up turning away at least 90% of people who bring an idea to me. I say, look, we can't help you today. You need to think about these things, or it doesn't matter whether you come to us or someone else. These are the things you need to think about. I'm happy to give people open, honest advice, because I know they're going to be better off thinking about these things. I'd rather people stop their ideas, thought about where they're going before they go out and waste any money at all with people that are going to implement some half-assed idea.
Yeah.
Never trust, don't take on anyone's own opinion of what they do. You know, do some research that they actually have achieved some results, that they have some substance behind their proposition before you spend hundreds or thousands of pounds with any marketing agency, any web developer. Have a look and see if you can ask to see the results of their work, or if you can see it, if you have a conversation with them, if you trust and understand what they're saying.
Awesome.
Gut instinct counts for a lot of stuff there.
Absolutely. Excuse my but Jamie, thank you so much for sharing today. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'll make sure that all the information, links, etc., are in the description of this video, in all the media, whether this is on Facebook or YouTube. Please make sure that you reach out, connect with Jamie, mention Life Hacks with Max so that he knows where you've come from. But also make sure that you've registered to our channel. If you have any questions, post them into the video links and comment sections below, and either myself or Jamie will get back to you at some point. So thank you so much for watching today, and wishing you guys a fantastic week further.
Thank you.